All right, it's 6 o'clock by my count. Should we go for it? Okay. This is the meeting of the Conservation Commission and Inland Wetland Agency for the city of Norwalk. The day is Tuesday, August 9th, 2022. It's 6 o'clock p.m. Alexis, could we have a call to order, please?
Yes, which you've done, and so the roll call is.
Oh, I'm sorry, roll call.
You've taken care of that.
That's all right. Roll call, please.
We've got Cheryl Brown.
Here.
Don Mailing.
Here.
Matt Merluzzi. Matt Pence.
Here.
Jennifer Balliet.
Here.
And Steve Clockey.
Here.
I think that's everyone.
Okay.
6.
Next on the agenda is a mission statement, which I have not prepared, but I am looking at the Inland Wetlands Commission Land Use Academy guide here, which is what I'm going to start my draft of the mission statement from. And basically says that under section blah, blah, blah of the Connecticut General Statutes, each municipality is required to establish an inland wetlands and watercourses agency, which is what we are, at least partially. Powers and duties primarily are to hear, consider, and decide upon applications for regulated activities involving wetlands, and to enforce inland wetland regulations and conditions of permit. And the factors to be considered when reviewing an inland wetlands application include environmental impact of the proposed action, the purpose for and any feasible and prudent alternatives to the proposed action, the relationship between short-term uses and the maintenance and enhancement of long-term productivity of wetlands, irreversible or irretrievable loss of resources, character and or possible injury to the health or reasonable use of property which is caused or threatened by the proposed activity, and impacts of proposed regulated activities on wetlands or watercourses as such. We'll work on that. That was a draft. Public comment. Do we have anybody waiting to make comments?
We have no attendees waiting in the wings.
Sweet. Moving on. Receipt and discussion. S22-606, 32 Knight Street. Go for it.
Okay, Miss Williams has been reviewing this application, so I'll let her do like a super brief introduction, and then I think that the applicants are here, and applicants, if you could just kind of do a slightly less brief introduction. And this is the receipt of the application, so no decisions tonight. It's your first look at this application.
Vincent Hines is here to talk about the application, but like what I sent you guys, it is an existing building. They are demolishing part of it and expanding the parking lot adjacent to a wetland and a watercourse. So Vincent, you can go ahead and share your screen if you have anything, or I have your materials if you'd like me to share my screen instead.
Yeah, absolutely. I can share my screen. I have the material prepped and ready here. So good evening, everybody. For the record, my name is Vince Hines, and I'm a licensed engineer with Redness and Mead, having offices in Stamford and Wilton. And I'm here today with Mike Sorreo of Selixon Properties, representing the ownership, Eric Rains of Eric Rains Landscape Architecture, and Nicholas Michnovich of MBH Architecture. We're here for, I think, a good project as it relates to upland review area. I'd say we're excited to have this improvement to the site here at 32 Knight Street, which is the former home of Lily and August, who, you know, and since their relocation to the Sono collection, the site has been vacant. So with that, here's just a quick landscape site plan of the site here under proposal. And then a little bit of background 32 Ninth Street is bound by North Avenue to the north, Ninth Street to the west, and a mix of commercial and residential properties east and south. And we have Betts Pond Brook, which enters through a culvert system, daylights onto the site along the eastern edge of the building, and then flows south, towards Wall Street and eventually the harbor. And really that is why we're here before you, because the proposed activity is within that upland review area of the brook. Just a couple of quick things, the houses, and to explain the betterment conditions, and we'll get to the house as we go through the presentation. But we have this Betts Pond Brook corridor that would otherwise not have really any positive reinforcement done to it, because right now it's a hidden feature behind the existing building. So we're increasing visibility and enhancement of that buffer area just purely by taking back some of this building. And in doing such, we're decreasing impervious coverage and increasing the water quality treatment for stormwater runoff tributary to the brook. So here's a clear distinction of kind of existing conditions in site plan format, with an indication of where the 100-foot upland review area is to the brook. As you can see, it's mostly impervious coverage under existing conditions. We have over 80% coverage today. 97,000 square feet of that roughly is the existing building, which sits with a little bit of asphalt pavement on the backside of the building, between the building and the brook. You have impervious coverage anywhere from 10 to 15 feet off the edge of the water course. There's 4 or 5 different stormwater connections, piping stormwater runoff from the various parking lots and building roof area to the brook, with little to no water quality treatment. And that water quality under existing conditions is kind of limited to the northern parking lot, which is treated via catch basin and an existing Vortec unit kind of in the easternmost side of that parking lot. And that, actually, since I'm mentioning that was brought up as part of the preliminary comments on the review. This Vortec unit, it treats, like I said, this existing parking lot as well as some drainage runoff from 22 North Avenue. And that was just recently cleaned out on July 13th with one vac sewer and drain services. I was on site for that clean out, and while they removed all the debris and sediment that was in that structure, and they actually video cameraed the discharge line, which runs south along the eastern edge of the building and then daylights into the brook. They found a blockage in that pipe, and as part of the proposal, we are proposing to replace the existing pipe with new, removing the blockage, which was actually some tree roots. So we're gonna lop some tree roots, and with the protection of the nearby tree. It's actually in this corner of the property here, if you can see my mouse. And we'll install a new pipe and hopefully maintain the existing flow beyond that. So then just moving to proposed conditions, we have, like I said, an opportunity here with a new user, a medical office user, if I didn't say that earlier, where they're proposing to use approximately 47,000 square feet of the existing building with some interior fit up work and facade treatment to the building that's to remain, and then demo of the other approximately 50,000 square feet. And in its place would be adequate parking and sidewalk area to accommodate the zoning requirements of the medical office user. In doing this, we are reducing impervious coverage by about 1/4 acre, from roughly 3.25 acres of coverage to just over 3 acres. And I think if I flip back and forth between these existing and proposed condition exhibits, you'd see that a big chunk of that area that's being removed is within the upland review area nearby the edge of the brook. So I'll just flip there and back. And roughly, we're increasing the available landscape buffer from about 10 feet currently to 20 plus feet, depending on where you are in this buffer area. And with that comes, again, this visibility of the wetland, or not wetland, of the watercourse that's not there today, which I think is in itself an enhancement, because now your user, your tenant and your customers of the building see it, and if they see anything out of the ordinary, it's a lot easier to keep maintained and in good condition, because you want everybody to enjoy the area. Whereas right now it's kind of the back of the building, out of sight, out of mind, to an extent. And then I'll just quickly go through some of the stormwater improvements, and then I'll pass it along to Eric Rains, and who can speak to the particular landscape features. But I do want to point out that we're in a review process with DPW. They're reviewing the stormwater management plan that's before you here against their drainage manual, and although we're reducing coverage and by proxy the peak rates of runoff, which is a good condition to have when you're up against the brook there, we also do have to provide water quality improvement to the disturbed area. So as such, we're, for the new parking lot here on the west side and south side of the building, we will have a series of catch basins and oil grit separators that are connected to an underground infiltration system that then provides water quality volume storage prior to being metered out to the brook. And then in addition to that, we have a rain garden here on the eastern edge, which again is a low impact design feature that we're incorporating in the buffer area to try to minimize impervious coverage, but also provide some water quality benefit for the disturbed area. And then I'll just point out again, the existing Vortec unit that's in the northern parking lot would remain, and we'll replace that pipe out to the brook along the eastern edge of the building here.
Mr. Hines, could I interrupt very quickly?
Yeah.
Did you mention what happens to the water from the roof of the building? Is that shown on here?
So the roof of the building, that's where there's, I mentioned there's 4 or 5 existing discharge points along the edge of the brook. And the roof is among those conditions where there's some downspout leaders on the edge of the building that are piped directly to the brook.
Hmm.
So by a little bit by proxy on the south side of the building here, where we're doing the new parking lot, we would be reducing those points of influence into the brook by removing the building, and then the remaining roof would continue discharging as it does today.
Thanks.
Is it a flat roof?
Yes, sir.
So there's no particular pitch as far as where the water, rainwater
Yeah.
and snow
Yeah.
goes.
Correct. Yeah, there's the leaders that I referred to are, I imagine, the overflow condition, and then there's interior roof drains that come down and discharge at these points along the brook.
Okay.
I'll just open it up a little bit. Any other questions on stormwater management? If not, I can pass it along to Eric Rains and we can go through some of
Maybe
the
just before you pass it along, related to stormwater management, the 100-foot setback dotted line runs through the remainder, the southern portion of the property, obviously. Where, given the parking lot in the southwest, where do you expect to pile up the snow?
That's a good question. I can confer with Mike Sorreo and the property owners and determine what their snow removal protocols will be.
It's something that we would want to know. Thank you.
Yeah, understood, because certainly you don't want the snow to be pushed up off the side here up against the corridor. So you want to understand where that's going. Complete reasonable request.
It looks like there's plenty of room there on the western side of the property, but I leave that to you and your owners.
With that, I'll open it up for Eric Rains, and I'll move on to the landscape site plan here.
Thank you. Thank you, Vincent. Eric Rains, landscape architect for the project. We'll focus on the area that we're wrapping the rain garden with, and the rain garden itself. But the rest of the site is generally planted with canopy trees and then lower evergreens around the perimeter of the building. We're intending to develop the area where the rain garden is to not only serve the purposes that Vincent was talking about, but also as an amenity to the users of the building, whether they're employees or if they're visitors to the site. The rectangle there is it will be a porous pavement surface that could have furniture on it that would be used as people come and go. And then the rain garden he mentioned is wrapping on the western side of it and the southern side of it. And the goal for this is for it to, there's a sample photo in the drawing set that we submitted. The goal for it is to have more of a flat kind of gravel bottom. Then the edges would slope up, and that's where the majority of the planting would be. Vince, I don't know if you have that photo and if it's in sequence with what you've got there. And then within the flat gravel area, there might be some larger rocks or boulders that would, the intention there is to, create a little bit more of a composition so that it is something that would be aesthetically pleasing to look at. The rain garden on the edges right now we called them out to be Meta Sequoia, and we've gotten the request to switch that to something else, which we would certainly do. something native. And you could see those sprinkled there. I think there's 7 of them that sort of wrap the area. Most importantly, the 3 on the left there are the ones that would give, shade to the sitting area, the western edge, and then the one on the southern edge. And then the 3 on the top, the trees on the top, would be intended to buffer the space from the vertical side of the vertical facade of the building. So that on those 3 sides would be various types of vegetation, and then on the eastern edge would be the brook. So the intention is to make this sort of its own space within the property.
Here's that sample photo that Eric was describing.
What he's bringing up is a rain garden that it's not something we designed, but it's in Bruce Park in Greenwich, and it's very successfully. We feel it's very successfully done. But Vincent, I think your office was involved in that, right?
Correct. Yeah. And that was it was a larger rain garden for a larger tributary area, but it was, I believe, based on the continued maintenance of it, has been a successful project for rain garden installation.
Yeah, it's terrific. It hasn't come up on my screen yet, but I don't know if it.
Question, how far exactly is the edge of the building, the edge that's kind of shaved off from the stream bank? I know that it's within the 100-foot review area, but specifically, how close is that edge of the building to the stream, to the Betts Brook bank?
You mean that southeast corner that's angled off?
No, well, the southeast corner of the building, yes.
Yeah, so it ranges from about 14 feet off the edge of the brook to about 20 to 22 feet.
From the edge of the building to the edge of the brook is 22 feet. Or
Plus
more
or-
or less. I mean, that's
Yeah,
what you-
more or less, yeah. And I'll just go back, but our comparison was related to impervious coverage that's on the backside of the building. So under today's condition, there is this asphalt, kind of wider asphalt area that I imagine at some point was intended as an accessible route that maybe you could get to from the neighboring property. But that's there under today's condition. So that's the point of reference that I made, where we're more in the 10 feet off of the edge of the brook with that surface.
Okay, but that's as things are at the moment. That's the existing building.
Yes.
And your proposal seems to suggest that you're going to dig up that paved area.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I guess what I'm just wondering about, there's just the one spot on the proposed building that is virtually on top of Betts Brook, and it looks like the architect cut the corner because he couldn't make it any closer. That it would certainly not be a good choice. I'm wondering, in terms of alternative ways of dealing with the protection of the brook, whether in fact that angle could start a little higher up, and in that fashion pull the proposed building a little farther away from the stream. Yes, that's the area.
Yeah. So
It's listed as a mechanical. That's where the mechanicals for the building go, and it's a common area, meaning it's not
just
for common use, it's commonly owned to the building. It's not specific to some specific tenant.
Right. And the thing that I would point out there is that this is the edge of the building as shown. That's the edge of the existing building. So we're not intending to do any new building there. That's all part of the existing building, which is to remain under the
I see.
proposal.
I see.
So, I mean.
In your sketch, Vincent, the white hatch marks are kind of a background view of the existing building, correct?
Correct, yeah.
And
So
just to clarify, so like the foundation of the existing building is staying there. It's not like being scraped away and you're starting new. You're actually working from the existing foundation of the building.
Correct, with the exception of on the south face and west face of this building, and then to some extent the north face, you know, we do have some facade improvements there, but on the south and west, those we're pulling back more or less to existing column lines and installing new frost walls at those locations.
And just to explain, I think where we're coming from is it may seem like a minor difference, but if you were, for example, raising the existing building entirely, then theoretically you'd have a blank slate to work with a new footprint for the building. But to me, so you've just explained that, no, you are actually keeping the existing foundation.
Yes.
Keeping the existing structure. You have reduced, you know, a considerable amount of structure on the property, but you're not like starting from scratch essentially, which I think makes it a little more justifiable to leave the footprint where it is, whether or not we like it or not. You're not causing any sort of irreversible or irretrievable loss of resources at that point. And yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good distinction for that, is that by keeping this existing foundation wall and limiting it to just a facade facelift, more or less, on that base, we're limiting the amount of potential disturbances to the water course on that as you go along the northern side of this property on this existing building to remain, just because in the nature of it, like you said, if we were to pull back that existing foundation and start new, we'd have a greater disturbance.
Yeah, that seems apparent.
Mr. Raines, you want to keep going? If you had more?
No, I think that pretty much covered it, unless there are further questions.
Yeah, so unless there's any questions on the landscaping plan, I just want to kind of wrap it up by noting that we do have a concurrent application process with planning and zoning, which includes redevelopment agency review and third-party reviewer review of the materials from a site plan and architectural standpoint. And then we have departmental referrals with the typical DPW, WPCA, TMP ongoing as well. And to date, we've had positive conversation with DPW and WPCA, no referral letter or conditional approval to note just yet, but we have had those preliminary discussions, and we're looking forward to move this process forward and towards hopefully an approval that everybody can be happy with, and where we're obviously providing a tenant space for the tenant user, but also provide a betterment condition, we feel, to the corridor that's on Brook.
I guess I would just say, for your information, some of the commissioners are going to wish to walk the property to see specifically what it is that exists. I'm not quite certain about the rain garden. I see I see rain gardens on just about every application that comes through here. And I'm not certain exactly how much real benefit there is to them. Your reference to Bruce Park and Greenwich is, I know, I mean, I, like anyone else, I've been through Bruce Park, and I don't know, the whole place is a rain garden as far as I can see. But you know, the fact that there's a similar rain garden in Bruce Park doesn't help me. I'm still going to want to walk through there and see, to make sure that it's clean water that's going through there and no pollutants. That's our job, is to make sure that that happens. And so, you know, I'm just saying that those are my concerns that I'm going to wrestle with walking the site.
All that makes perfect sense. And the only reason that I referenced that particular rain garden is because it looks sensational in my mind. It doesn't matter to me that it's in Bruce Park. It could have been anywhere. But you know, certainly it's the aesthetic that we're headed for in this rain garden, and the requirements that you just laid out, I think all make perfect sense.
Okay, and I've got, if I think we'll move on here shortly. And just so, you know, maybe when you come back to us, obviously we can't decide anything tonight, but and Alexis, we don't have a second meeting in August, so our next meeting would be in September. Is that true?
That is true. September 13th is your
September
next
13th.
scheduled meeting at this point.
Okay. So I just throw out some thoughts about the lighting. It seems like the southeast corner of the parking, we're starting to get some lighting over the creek, which I think probably should be avoided. I don't know if you can avoid that or not with the lighting design, maybe pull it back a little bit. That's just a suggestion. If anybody hadn't looked at the wetland watercourse assessment, it doesn't look like there are a ton of useful functions. There's a little bit of biological function, a little bit of water quality function, not much societal function, assuming you agree with this report. So there's that. And then I was just going to ask you if you had any questions or feedback based on Ms. Williams's memo dated July 29th. I think you've addressed some of it about, for example, garden terrace being impermeable, but you told us today it's going to be permeable. So that has changed, I think. Do you have any other questions or feedback about her 4 points or 3 points in that memo?
She asked for to not use Dawn Redwood, which is fine. We could coordinate with her or you guys or whomever on what those trees are. Most, aside from their function, is to provide shade. So whatever other benefits they offer, then that would be good. And then I think that's it.
Yeah, we hit upon the comment on the Vortec unit existing, and DPW does have the stormwater management report to be reviewing and provide commentary on.
Okay, great. Any commissioners have any additional questions or comments for this receipt? Okie dokie. Then I think we'll just say thank you to the applicants and move on to the next property.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks very much. Have a nice evening.
Okay, next up is S22-607 Cannon Street at Betts Pond Brook, Norwalk, DPW.
Okay, so this is a last minute addition for some work. It does require agency review because some of the work will be just within or on the banks of the brook. So it is not allowed to be an administrative review. So the scope is relatively small, but the proximity lands it before you tonight. And I know that Mr. Sotnick and Mrs. Valadares from the Public Works Department are here, as well as Mr. Quinnett from Freeman Associates. And so we can turn it over to you to just briefly describe what you propose to do. This is right up the road from City Hall on Cannon. It's the same brook, but slightly upstream from what you just reviewed. And I can share my screen if that's easier. Applicants, or Dennis, you can.
Should I start, Alexis?
Yes, that'd be great.
So good evening, everybody. My name is Vanessa Valadares, Principal Engineer DPW. Here with me, I have my Senior Engineer, Paul Sotnick, and also with us is our consultant, Dennis Quenned from Freeman. So the reason that we are in front of you today is because we need to get a permit to the rehabilitation of Bridge 102-002 that is on Cannon Street over Bats Pond Brook. I just want to remind you that we came probably about a year ago for something very similar to a different bridge. What happened is that the city is responsible for the inspection of every bridge below a 20-foot span. So we have Freeman as our consultant. They went through all the bridges that we have in town that has less than 20-foot span. And then there is a list of priorities and some of the work that we need to do on those bridges or culverts. So the good thing about it is that you guys are gonna be seeing us very often, because every year we're planning to do 2 or 3 of those bridges or culverts, and we come to you for those permits. So we did the one at Bonnie Brook before, but now we decide we have enough fundings that to make it more appealing to the contractor, because it's really like a small work that we do on each one. We decided to combine 2 projects in one. So we're gonna bid the 2 bridges together. So one of them you guys already approved, we have the permit, and this is the second one that we decided to add. So I just wanna give you that feedback for you guys, and I'm gonna get into the bridge itself. So again, this is just a rehabilitation work, and most of the work that we need to do is to build a retaining wall at the southwest corner of the embankment. That's where our pipe comes out, and it's causing a lot of erosion. So now we have to have a retaining wall in order to hold that site. Most of the work that we're proposing is more on the downstream portion, and also not on the upstream portion near the water, but is on the downstream is where we're gonna be more on the near the wetlands and the water. As part of the rehabilitation, we are also doing some concrete end blocks at the corner of the south parapet, and also replacing some of the rails. So I'm gonna pass to Dennis. He can kind of really go into more details. And if you guys have any questions, I have Paul here and Dennis to be able to answer. Dennis, are you there? I don't know if I see him now. I was seeing him
Yeah.
before.
He's
Oh, there
there.
he is. Yeah, we see him.
But-
Dennis, we cannot hear you though. No, still we cannot hear you. So,
I can,
so Dennis, maybe you have to log out and try to log in again. I don't know. Don't know if you can hear us.
Alexis, do we have any photographs of it at all? I mean, is there?
no idea.
We have also, if you don't have Alexis, we can start at least showing this.
Yeah,
this-
I'll start with, here's some locational information. So this is the Route 1 corridor. East Avenue is here's the green. This is the Upper Harbor, Norwalk River. And here's Cannon, which goes across to like Ward Street and Main over there. And so then if we zoom in, that's Pond Brook is this little corridor here, and here's the Cannon Road crossing. So unfortunately, no, I did not. I did not get out to the site to take photos. Sorry.
We may have some pictures for when we did the inspection on it, if you guys
Okay.
can share.
So that would be, no, this isn't even
Yeah,
letting me
so-
show. So if you have photos, I will stop sharing.
So do you have these pictures?
Maybe. Share, sorry.
Okay. So share. On the right.
Oh. I've got to get to my pictures.
Okay, so can you guys see the screen now?
There we go. Yes, thank you.
So I think that, so this is, they want to put it in which one? So
Yeah,
we'll-
I'll start from the beginning. Basically, this is the south section looking north, where we'd be building the retaining wall, where the existing wall is crumbling and falling apart. And then end blocks would be put up on a new parapet, and then we would be repairing the bank in this area due to where the tree has been uprooted and torn out.
Can you hear me now, Paul?
Yes, we can, Dennis.
Okay.
So Dennis, we're just showing them some of the pictures, and then we'll turn back to you so you can explain the project. So let's go through the pictures now,
Okay.
so they can take them.
This is an upstream elevation looking at the bridge. As Vanessa said, there's not a lot of work up in this area except for at the parapet. And this is some of the guide rail along the sides of the road. It's not bolted to the parapet like it should be.
I think this is a good picture so you guys can understand why we need a retaining wall. You see, so that is the southwest corner where we're proposing the retaining wall. No, I'm sorry, this is the north side.
This is the north side as
So
you
that's
enter the culvert.
Yeah, it's the south one.
And
If you
then
wanna have another one.
this is the area we were just talking about right in here, where on the east side, the embankment from where the tree uprooted and fell over, you've got a piece of area that's eroding and falling into the stream. We would take care of that. And this is the existing wall on the west side that we're replacing with the retaining wall. And this is the pipe that comes out from the catch basin along the street. So because of the way that's falling apart and falling in, we'd be looking to build a retaining wall across. We can show you that on the plan.
So I think that Dennis can now go through the drawings, or do you guys need to see more pictures?
Could you, before you go away from this, the picture on the left where the tree fell down, it looks like the current of the brook is undercutting this area.
Because of where the tree uprooted.
I mean, I'm
That's
only
correct.
looking at a little picture, so I don't know, but is the general flow of the brook towards that bank? I mean, does it tend to angle that way? And if so, is there a way to adjust it so that it doesn't undercut the bank?
That's one of the
Paul,
things
can I,
that Dennis can explain.
Yeah, so what you're
So
looking
Dennis,
at,
can
this
you-
picture
can
to the
you-
left.
we're gonna stop sharing. Do you have the drawings that you want us to put up, or you'll be able to share your screen?
I can't share the screen, but I'd like to talk to about these photos right now, just to explain to the commissioners what's going on in this corner right here. If you look at the photo to the left here, there used to be an overgrowth tree that was located right at the corner of the bridge. What you're looking at is the downstream side of the bridge. So water is coming towards the picture there. So what happened was the tree fell and basically uprooted the entire embankment. And that's what you see there, is that the embankment is actually raised. And so what we were proposing was basically to regrade this area and provide some type of embankment protection to prevent erosion. Without that repair, this area right here is gonna get eroded and it's gonna get worse.
So what is specifically is the tool that you're going to use to prevent erosion?
What we were planning on showing is basically to regrade this area around 2 to 1, starting from the corner of that culvert, and then providing some maybe riprap, a modified riprap, and just to protect that embankment. There is no work in stream. The wetland limits that was determined by our soil scientists is essentially at the edge of the embankment. So there's no work in stream. It's going to be just at the embankment.
Okay, I think,
Policy.
go ahead, sorry.
Paul, if you could maybe show the plans, and we could probably present the proposed work.
Well, just to move this along, I think, unless you guys think I'm stepping on anyone's toes, but I don't know that any one of us would disagree with the intent or the need to do this work. I think mostly we would just want to make sure that the work is done, with erosion control as per usual, and also maybe restored or even enhanced in a way that might reproduce what was there before that tree fell down. So I guess I would just suggest considering, well, first of all, as you regrade, how is that grade being replanted? We would want it to be something that's appropriate and native and all that stuff. And then also I would like you to suggest considering maybe planting an extra tree or two. That's not anything I would remotely be able to, require. It's just a thought as an enhancement. So I guess I'm throwing out erosion control, ground cover, and potential enhancement with a tree or two would be really all that I would be concerned about. The engineering, as far as I'm concerned, you guys are going to do a great job. So I don't want to speak for everybody. Someone else, feel free to chime in. I just think it's a relatively simple project.
Commissioner, I just want to add that as of now, what we have for that east embankment is some riprap. And one of the reasons is that Commissioner Molding was correct. There is a kind of an undermining under where was the tree.
Yeah.
We have two conditions that happen in that corner. Besides the flow of the brook, we do have the pipe that discharge. So when you really have a major storm, it hits right in front of it. So that's why we are proposing the riprap. I know it's not ideal, but that's what we believe that will really make it very stable. One thing that we can definitely add is we can add some trees on the top of it to try to kind of bring some of that green back. But to be honest, if you could allow us to at least keep the bottom of that embankment up with riprap, and then we'll come with some kind of a landscape on top, even to be pleasant for the neighborhood. We have no issues with that. But we do feel that it's important, if possible, to keep the riprap to avoid future erosion on that embankment.
Yeah, I agree. I wasn't, yes, I agree entirely with that. That was, as far as I'm concerned, part of your engineering work, and I'm not gonna touch it. If you think it's necessary, that sounds great to me. But everything
One
else,
last-
the slight regrading and the ground cover, and, if you're amenable to sprucing it up a little bit, that sounds great. But again, it's just a thought.
Is the riprap, those are stones, riprap is stones. Are they large stone? I mean, are they sufficiently large that a rush of water is not going to wash them away? Is that something that can be depended on?
We
Or are they
have
small
not
stones like you
performed- we
have in a railroad, under a railroad line?
We have not performed,
That is the road itself.
so
Dennis?
the riprap that we're proposing is essentially just a modified riprap. They're probably about 6 to 8 inches in diameter approximately. And it's just going to be located right at the bottom section of that embankment. And then above that, it's just going to be regraded, and turf will be reestablished in that area.
Okay. Thank you.
They're larger than the railroad stones you're thinking of, John. They're quite a bit larger than that.
Do
Good.
any other commissioners, well, would the applicant like to add anything else, or do any commissioners have any questions or additional comments? Okay, well, if that's it for now, we'll thank you for the receipt of this application, and we'll discuss it again and hopefully move it forward at our next meeting.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to discussion and or decision, S22-599, 20 Lancaster Drive, dredging of a pond.
Do we have, Mr. Chairman, do we have time? I'm just thinking, we've got a
Oh, public hearing in 8 minutes.
public hearing at 7. Maybe we need to move that around.
Yep. So there's no new information for 20 Lancaster. I requested that he withdraw his application. So far, he has declined with the hopes that maybe you'll change your mind. I let him know that that's unlikely. That your next meeting, September 13th, is your decision deadline. So I've let him know that he either needs to withdraw, or then otherwise the agency would have to go through the procedure of denying the application. So I'll be calling him again in advance of the next meeting, again, to encourage him to withdraw.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. That's that. I'm just going to keep on going here, and maybe Alexis has a equally concise answer for S22-605, 8 Leslie Lane.
Sure. At the last meeting, you discussed the application, and I included a memorandum with the draft resolution. A lot of it is pretty standard. Install silt fence, don't go beyond the silt fence. The area between the wall has to be stabilized. The wetland area needs to have a native seed mix, and then all disturbed areas have to be revegetated and stabilized. Gives the applicant 1 month from to do everything, and that's about it.
I move that S22-605 be granted according to the terms outlined in staff memorandum dated August 1st, 8 Leslie Lane. That's my
Okay.
motion.
Any seconds?
I'll second it.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, you want to bring it to a vote, Alexis, or should I? I forget.
You can bring it to, I think a voice vote is fine. I don't think it's a contentious application.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 All
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? Okie dokie,
So it looks
There it
like
is.
7 in favor, none opposed.
grand. Okay, so we still have 6 minutes, sweet. How about I move to amend the agenda to move the approval of minutes before the public hearing?
Okay.
Any seconds?
I second.
Discussion? Okay. We don't have to, do we vote on that?
Yeah, you do.
Okay,
to
so
amend
all in
the
favor
agenda-
for amending the agenda to skip the public hearing and move forward with the rest of the items? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Sweet, moving on. Who read the
Okay.
minutes?
Page 2, the paragraph beginning, there was a discussion. On the third line, it says about the boundaries of the bond as opposed to the pond.
Okay,
That's the only thing I would point out.
Okay. So we want to, would you like to move to approve as amended or as suggested amendment?
So moved.
Second? Mr. Pence, discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed?
I wasn't,
Abstain?
I wasn't there, so I'm abstaining. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. Technically, I should too. Put me down for abstention as well, Alexis.
Okay.
Okay, designation of agent, what does that mean?
okay, so under chapter 12 of the inland wetland regulations, there is activities. So you guys look at a lot of permit applications that we call either intermediate or significant, but there's also an administrative approval process where we issue minor permits. And that is described in, scrolling here, chapter 12 of the wetland regulations, which talks about, almost there, action by a duly authorized agent. So the agency, that's to you, may delegate its duly authorized agent the authority to approve or extend any activity that's not located in a wetland or in a watercourse when such agent finds that the conduct of such activity would result in no greater than a minimal impact on any wetland or watercourse. And in Norwalk, we consider that kind of regulated activity to be a minor regulated activity. And you've had a few duly authorized agents over the years. I believe that I am 007. And Amelia, let me take a step back. In order to be a designated agent, you have to complete the comprehensive training program that's developed by DEEP. And it is now online, and Amelia has completed that training. And so your agent 007 would highly recommend that you also duly authorize agent X or 10 to formally issue minor wetland permits.
Should
And that
we,
is why that is on the agenda.
do we need a motion and vote on that?
Absolutely.
So moved.
Okay.
Second,
Second.
Second.
discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Welcome, Agent X.
I should have said that typically a speech is required.
We have a minute and a half.
There's a secret handshake, Amelia. We'll tell you about that later.
That's right. John has also gotten his commissioner's training completed and is a certificate holder, so he'll
Well,
keep
that's
tabs on it.
impressive. That's very impressive.
Okay, well, we'll, do we need to do anything in order to switch back to item 7 on the agenda and do the public hearing?
Nope, you would just formally open the public hearing. I'll do a roll call again for the public hearing. I'll go through the notice, and then we'll have an extremely brief discussion of next steps.
Okay, I'm gonna wait till my clock says 7:00. Didn't we have a training session one time where somebody played music as we were waiting? Was that with you guys, or was that something else?
Training session
Anybody
with
remember that?
music.
Hmm.
Training. Oh, well,
That sounds familiar to me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember what it was, but I remember we had to answer questions or it was something and they played music.
Yeah. Okay.
that was something else then. Maybe through UConn.
I think it was Judy Henske's Wade in the Water, if I'm not mistaken.
Sounds good to me. Okay, 7 o'clock. It's time for a public hearing on S22-59675 Witch Lane. Alexis.
Okay, so this is the opening of a public hearing on a significant regulated activity.
Do we need a roll call?
And I will do the roll call. Thank you for the reminder. Stephen Clark.
Well, you just said it 30 seconds ago. Here,
It was a long,
don't give me
long
too
time
much
ago
credit.
for my old brain. Cheryl Brown,
Here.
John Mailing,
What about us?
you're here.
Yes.
I'm just doing the roll call for the public hearing. Commissioner Pence. Commissioner Valiant.
Here.
Valiant. Oh,
Here.
Commissioner Knight
Here.
and Commissioner Merluzzi.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That was all 7 of you. So notice of the hearing was mailed to the adjacent property owners. I think the applicant will provide more information on that. And then it was noticed in the Norwalk Hour twice on July 28th and the 4th of August. So typically what happens, I'll just go through what a typical public hearing is. The applicant would provide a presentation and an overview of what's being proposed. The agency would then open it to public comment. The applicant would then have a chance to respond to or do a final rebuttal of any comments by either the public or the commissioners. The commissioners would then close the public hearing, and then they have a certain time frame to make a decision. And I'm saying all this because I do see there is one attendee in the audience. And so unfortunately, I don't have a way to know if this attendee, I'm assuming this attendee is here for the public hearing. As the agency may also recall, at the receipt of the application, you determined that the nature of the application warranted an outside reviewer, and you requested that an outside consultant just review the proposal and how the proposal may impact or not impact the functions and values of the wetland watercourse system. We had great difficulty finding a professional wetland scientist that could complete a review and provide a report within the short time frame. We do have one, and this person is diligently working on reviewing the application, but is unable to provide the report in advance of tonight's meeting and cannot be here at tonight's meeting. So what that means is that in the application, as far as what the applicants have provided, is complete, but the external review that you've required is incomplete and is unavailable. So
we have an application which, from the standpoint of the commission, is incomplete. And in order to effectively consider this application, one would want it to be complete. And if,
right, I wouldn't say that it's necessarily incomplete.
if the rules require us to consider it before it's complete from our standpoint, then we would be in a position where we would have to vote on the basis of it being incomplete. The alternative being to extend it to a time when it is complete, according to both parties.
Well, again, I think we should clarify, it's not an incomplete application. We have chosen to request additional information. So we don't actually need more from the applicant. We need more for our own purposes.
Right,
And-
and we need to provide the applicant the opportunity to address anything that comes up in that report.
And we
So-
can't take in any more information after
Mhm.
we've closed public hearing. And so is our only path forward really to leave the public hearing open? We can hear whoever is here today, but leave it open for our next meeting in the hopes that we'll have that third-party report by then?
Right, so the state statute has a variety of application review timelines. And so once you commence a public hearing, you have to end it within 35 days. And so that is within the time frame of your next meeting, which is September 13th. The other time frame is that you have to hold the public hearing has to commence within a certain time period. And that time period is up tonight. So that is why you need to start the hearing tonight, but you are allowed to push it, to table it, not table it, to continue it to your next meeting. So as far as the one person that is listening in, typically the applicant would do a presentation so that you are, the application is reviewed. And I don't think that the applicants were planning on doing a presentation tonight. Is that correct? Right, okay.
That is correct, yeah.
So,
So we
I-
can let this
I'm
person
sorry, I
say
should
their
say
piece.
Wayne DeVanzo for the applicant.
that's,
So I'm sorry, I was saying, so we can either let the person from the public say something now, or if they're available, tune in next time when there's possibly more information to review.
right. And I would, I think out of fairness, since that would be to have the public kind of speak prior to a presentation, I would defer to the applicant. If the applicant was uncomfortable with that, I would stick to your standard procedures and state that the application unfortunately will be, or the public hearing on the application will have to be continued to the next meeting on September.
It's continued and not extended, is that correct?
Correct. It's just
So that
continued.
It's just
effectively,
not
the public
closed.
hearing tonight would stop. And it would restart at the next meeting.
Correct. And for the public that's sitting out there in Zoom land, I would strongly encourage you to come into the office or give me, Alexis, a call or email, and that we can share all of the submitted documents with you and potentially answer any questions.
I would just like to say, I mean, I'm not objecting to any of these procedurals, but sooner or later, I would very much like to hear what that person on the outside has to say. Because it could relate to what it is, to decisions that we're going to be making, and I would be very interested to hear it. So I would urge that person to please don't, fail to come back and let us know what you think.
And we apologize for the procedural hiccups that we are having with moving forward on this application.
Okay, so I think we should give that member of the public a few seconds here to chime in if they want. Do they need to be unmuted? If they do want to speak now instead of later?
Okay. And applicant, you're okay with that?
Yes, that would be fine.
If you are an attendee listening in, just use the raise your hand feature to indicate if you would like to speak at this point. And if you do click the raise the hand, will allow you to speak. And if you're just listening in to all this, then don't click the raise your hand feature on Zoom. And we'll just give them a minute. Probably should have asked that from the get-go. Okay, well, they're not raising their hand after all that.
Okay,
So let's just go ahead and leave this open and move on with our agenda, I guess.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you all.
Thank you. Take care.
You too.
Okay, so we are on line 10 of the agenda, conservation initiatives. Anyone? I think the one thing that sticks, oh, Alexis was going to talk. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to give an update. So I've been working on figuring out funding for both postage and printing and duplication. So it's probably possible to kind of gather money. I'm waiting for our, so we have a postage account. So each year we have an operating budget. The operating budget has a certain amount of funds. For conservation, it is very small, just so you know. And there's not a lot of, there's just not a lot there. And one of the lines is our postage. And I think that I mentioned that every year I bring that postage amount into to our postage meter. So one of the things that I haven't received yet, but I've asked for, is the amount that's on our meter, because hopefully we've accrued some additional funds there. And I'll continue to work on coming up with a better estimate of the total cost for the mailing. So I'm trying to, my other question for someone was, what would be the cost per item if we had that many of items being sent out? And there's a difference between if it's mailed to kind of just resident at an address versus an individual letter with a name on it. So I'm working on just kind of sorting all of those logistical options out for you. And hopefully at your next meeting in September, I'll have a much better grasp on it. But I just wanted to give you an update.
And that's on the mailer that goes to property owners that have wetlands on there.
Right, that you had discussed, right?
Yep. Great. Well, thank you for your effort on that.
I would just say that there are, I think, a reasonable number of outlets like Nancy on Norwalk and Norwalk Patch, and maybe several others that have fairly wide certain readership, if that's what you call it. And I think it would be relatively easy to reach out to the people who run those and just say, you know, it might be timely to just inform people that there's a way that they can obey the rules and protect the environment and stay out of trouble, and, you know, whatever it is that we would want to say to them. And that could be done fairly quickly. I don't know how many different ones there are. I know that Nancy Chapman is the one who does Nancy on Norwalk, and she's receptive to this. And so, you know, that's something we could consider as a.
That's a good idea. I think I agree with that.
And now this isn't something that Alexis has to do. I mean, any commissioner can take this upon themselves and roll with it, right?
The chairperson would be certainly the best to get everybody's attention.
Well, I could be, or I think anybody who had the time and resources could also volunteer.
Let's do that. I volunteer to reach out to Nancy, whom I know a little bit, and see what she says. And if she's interested, I'll feed it back into the loop, and we'll know, and we can decide what we want to do.
Well, anybody knows someone with extra change rattling around in their pocket too, maybe they could just put the bill for the postage.
I'm sure that the news outlets would be would definitely be interested. In the past, we've had articles in the hour, and they've done a very good job of putting them right on the front page. And I have no doubt that Nancy or Norwalk would give it similar treatment digitally.
Okay. Any other conservation initiatives conversation? Conservation conversation?
As far as content, did you want to focus on like what was the main? I just wanted to make sure that I had the focus that you wanted. And originally, I think that the focus was kind of how do we let people know that they potentially have wetlands, and if they potentially have wetlands, that they are regulated. Is that still kind of the objective, or do you think it should be something else? I just want to make sure. I think based on I was looking at the video from the previous meeting, and I wanted to make sure that that was still the primary focus. Or is it more if you have wetlands, consider doing these things to kind of keep them working their best? So was it kind of a more of a regulatory slant of, don't do work without a permit, or at least check if you have a permit because you could get a violation? Or is it more, embrace the wetland, benefits of natural plants, native plants, natural buffers, and that kind of thing? Any?
I think the former, the briefer and the more hard hitting you can make it, the better. We can elaborate on it and have, long things about flood control and whatever in another medium or another venue.
I agree. I say scare people and get their attention. I mean, not scare them, but you know what I mean.
To be a dick, kind of agree with Steven on that. Yeah.
And make sure to put a response thing in there that says, if you have any questions, here's the email or whatever.
A wetland application
contact
permit costs $600, for example.
Yeah.
What could you do with $600?
If they have any questions, they can contact our designated agent and get full response.
Okay.
I
She's
think
not
I
either-
look for
shaking her head,
examples
so,
on the internet, and I couldn't find anything. I'm all about don't hide your eyes, plagiarize, but I don't know.
I'll pull up the one that we did for that was in the hour, and I'll send that out to you.
Sweet.
Well, I'd be interested to know. It would be interesting to know if Westport or any of these other towns have got one. See what they had to say.
Commissioner Valiant?
I was just going to say, I think either way you go, it's just bringing awareness to them so that they even, are familiar with this. So, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any other conservation conversation? All right, then let's go on to comments of staff.
Okay, so my first comments have to do with inland wetland related stuff. Within your regulations, you don't have like any emergency action allowances. So for example, if there's a oil spill adjacent to a wetland, there's nothing directly in your regulations that would allow the person that has the oil spill to excavate and remove the contaminated soil from the oil spill if it was right next to the wetland and water course. But sometimes we really want someone to excavate contaminated soil that's right next to a water course quickly. And so the way that we've dealt with that in the past is that I issue a notice of violation, basically directing them to take the minimum measures necessary to prevent pollution of the wetland water course, and then file for a permit kind of retroactively after the fact. Does that make sense so far? And so then some parts of Norwalk are still on on-site septic systems, And sometimes septic systems don't work too well anymore. And so there's a impetus to install a new working septic system, even though both septic systems are within the upland review area. So I wanted to just kind of give you a heads up that I've received a letter from a septic installer who is trying to work on a septic replacement, and they are wanting to replace the septic because the septic that's currently there is failing. And it will require an intermediate application before you because of the amount of, they'll need to bring in clean septic fill because it's on a steep slope. It will need a permit from you. But I think that it makes sense to issue a notice of violation to them to say, initiate the installation of a operating non-failing septic system immediately. Take all sedimentation erosion controls, do everything that you need to do, and then apply later, or concurrently, not later. And I just wanted to kind of put that by you in case you were you're like, no, we want to see it first. Because I am your duly authorized agent, but and this is not in a wetland or water course, but it is you know, a little bit of a big dig. So I just wanted to mention that and give you a heads up that was going to happen.
So it's in an upland review area.
It isn't on a steep slope within an upland review area. Yes.
We don't have to get involved in any kind of septic system stuff that is not involved with upland review areas or wetlands or water courses or anything, do we?
I think that it will, because of the in your regulations, you define different regulated activities, and you kind of say a minor activity or administrative permit can't include new components of a septic system beyond just a tank. And then if the volume of fill within the upland review area is more than that 150 cubic yards, then it has to come before you. So I think that what they're doing will need to come before you, but I'm going to order them to go ahead and start the septic repair so that they stop using a failing system and then apply concurrently to you. Okay, just wanted to throw that out there because it's a bit of a, not a workaround, but it's the only way that I've been able to find how to address those emergency situations where you want someone to take action so that they don't continue to pollute a wetland or water course, but the fixing action is technically a regulated action. And the way to get around that is to basically order them to do it, but then kind of work backwards.
So this will all be perfectly clear to us when we read them in Diana's minutes.
Absolutely.
That's well intended, Alexis. I'm not sure any other way to, make sense to me.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. That's really it. I had said the last time I would make a list and I forgot to. So once again, that's what's on my mind.
Do you have help yet? Did you? Sorry if I missed it.
So not quite other than Amelia.
Other than Amelia.
We have we planning and zoning have hired one of our 3 new employees, and the other 2 will hopefully start on August 22nd. And one of those will be a new land use tech, which will be the kind of the inspector and fill Amelia's old position. So not quite yet, but getting there.
Good, great.
Knock on wood.
Okay. That's all the staff comments?
It is.
Okie dokie, thank you. I don't have any sort of report. Do any other commissioners have anything they wanted to talk about? Thank you to Cheryl for filling in for me last week.
Anytime.
Thanks. Okay, nobody has anything. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Amelia, can you hang around for a minute?
Sure.
Okay,
After we adjourn?
just a minute, that's all.
It sounds
Nope.
like it, yeah.
Everybody else
Catherine?
can go home.
I'll second.
You got a second? Okay, moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No abstentions, I hope, and we'll see you guys later.
Thank you.
Bye. Good night.
Bye.
Amelia, very quickly, that course